Fridays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. This one's going to be interesting because I'm going to be talking about Jauan Jennings potentially being a draft day trade. And normally I don't like doing these kinds of videos because it's kind of a hypothetical, but I've been reading the tea leaves and kind of looking into some of the information. I've been listening to other content creators talking about Brandon Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel potentially getting traded. You know, how will you afford these wide receivers? And simply put, after listening to John Lynch, they're going to have to find ways to make money. Now, going around and listening to everyone discuss Jauan Jennings has been something that I've been prone to do. I've been listening to people say that he's going to be, in the last year of his contract, that, him and Ray McLeod are going to be moving on next year. But that's not entirely accurate. I went to Spotrac and I was looking up, Jauan Jennings, and I had a feeling that, I was on the right track because I remember in 2020 when he was drafted, he was expected to make the 53-man roster. He had some problems with drops, and the 49ers ended up waiving him. Now, they signed him to the practice squad, but to be a unrestricted free agent, you must have 4 accrued seasons. That means you have to have 4 seasons in the NFL, and Jauan Jennings hasn't got there. The reason I knew this was something that was on the horizon was he was an exclusive rights free agent this year, which I've seen happen with Colton McKivitz and other players as well, which means next year he will be a restricted free agent. That changes some things because when you're a restricted free agent, you definitely is a little bit more of a predicament. Now, we've seen the 49ers go down this category before with Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was a restricted free agent. The 49ers put a second-round tender on him and kept him. But at the time, Deebo Samuel was on a rookie contract, and there was no high-priced wide receivers for the 49ers. It's a different category now. Brandon Aiyuk, it's not for sure, but it looks like Monday after the draft, the 49ers are going to exercise the 5th-year option on Brandon Aiyuk, making him over $14 million in 2024. So the 49ers are definitely going to have to find money. Deebo Samuel's contract is going up. Brandon Aiyuk's going to have a big contract. Can they afford to pay Jauan Jennings? We've seen the 49ers prepare, for players leaving. They knew eventually Kendrick Bourne was going to leave, and Kendrick Bourne was going to get a pretty good contract. He did from New England, so they drafted Jauan Jennings in 2020. He was going to be the eventual replacement for Kendrick Bourne, but it was a different circumstance. So now, do the 49ers actually have to move a little bit sooner? I'm sure they would love to have Jauan Jennings on the roster for the 2023 season. He's the best blocking wide receiver on the team. He's a third down conversion master. I mean, it's third in Jauan for a reason, and I don't want to trade Jauan Jennings. I really don't. I think he's a stud, and I would love to keep him. I like his aggressiveness. He's got a certain attitude about him that fits what Kyle Shanahan wants to do in the run game, and just from a blocking standpoint, he's everything you want as a player. But you can't keep everyone, and that's not something that I say. That's something that John Lynch just said in his press conference. So if you're keeping Deebo Samuel and you're keeping Brandon Aiyuk, you're probably not keeping Jauan Jennings. And here's why. Jauan Jennings was a 7th-round pick. So the way you put tenders on players, you can put a first-round tender. If you put a first-round tender on Jauan Jennings, of course, it means that someone would have to give you a first-round pick if they signed him to an offer sheet. You didn't match, he goes. But that's going to cost you over $6 million. We know the 49ers aren't going to do that. They can't afford to pay a wide receiver that's not Brandon Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel $6 million. So throw that one out of there. So then you could do a second-round tender. That's what they did to Kendrick Bourne, right? Different time. Kendrick Bourne's was closer to $4 million, a little under that. I think it was like $3.85 million at the time in 2020. Now, though, it's $4.3 million. Now, the 49ers definitely value Jauan Jennings enough to put a second-round tender, and if they weren't paying Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk, I would say it would be a slam dunk that they would offer a second-round tender to Jauan Jennings, $4.3 million, and they'd be able to keep him. But here's the issue. There's no way they're going to be able to pay him $4.3 million in 2023. In 2024. So what that means is they're going to have to put an original round tender on him or first right of refusal. What that means is when you put that original round tender on him, it means somebody else can sign him. And if they do, you have the ability to match the offer. Now that starts at $2.627 million. Still a little costly, but I'm sure the 49ers will be willing to do it to keep Jauan Jennings around. But my belief is that another team would be as well. And they would probably offer a amount in which the 49ers could not match. Even if that was $4 or $5 million, it would just be too rich for the 49ers' blood. So the 49ers would not be able to bring back Jauan Jennings. So then what do they get back as compensation? They would get a 7th round pick because that's what they drafted Jauan Jennings as. We know Jauan Jennings has way more value to the 49ers than a 7th round pick. He's making $940,000 this year. I'm sure he would love to make a lot more and probably deserves to get paid a lot more by the way that he's played. The way he converts on third down, the way he blocks, he'd be a surefire fit for over half the teams in the league. I'm sure the Rams would love to get him. Any teams that run Kyle Shanahan's system, Miami, the Houston Texans, the New York Jets, all would love a Jauan Jennings on their team, the attitude he plays with. So the 49ers' only way to probably get comparable capital for him and the exact value at which Jauan Jennings is worth is to trade him in the draft. What would that look like? I think that's a bigger question. Jauan Jennings has definitely proven to be a solid number 3 receiver in this league. We talked about the way he's able to block in the running game and the way he converts on third down. You would think one of those teams would have a tremendous amount of value. So could you trade Jauan Jennings for a 4th round pick? Probably. I think a 4th or 5th round pick for Jauan Jennings is definitely possible. And I'm sure there would be teams that would be interested in doing so. Does that provide enough value for the 49ers to lose Jauan Jennings for 2023? I think that's a bigger story. But here's the question. Could the 49ers take Jauan Jennings and couple it with, say, one of their 3 5th-round picks and get into the 2nd round? And in that 2nd round, could they get either an elite edge rusher that they could put opposite of Nick Bosa? Could they get a heir apparent? Could they get into the late 2nd, early 3rd and drafted Jonathan Mingo that they believe could take over Jauan Jennings' spot? I think it's a big question, but I do believe that Jauan Jennings could be moved on draft day. It's not something I like. I want him a part of the 2023 roster, but when you're looking at the money and what's going to come down and the way the 49ers appreciate getting compensation for their talent, is 1 year more of Jauan Jennings worth not getting anything back? I think that's for the 49ers to decide. I think they've definitely hedged their bets. They've insulated themselves, signing guys like Chris Conley and Snead to make sure they have guys who could play that slot role just in case they are not able to get somebody in the draft. So Jauan Jennings is a player I believe could be traded in the draft. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just looking at the money and the draft compensation that would come with it, it's potential that Jennings could get moved and the 49ers could move in a different direction. And they have a very, very good wide receiver room with Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Danny Gray, and of course, Ray-Ray McCloud. And if they have Jauan Jennings, absolutely fantastic. We know how he'll play. And then there'll be question marks about him in the offseason. But don't be surprised if Jauan Jennings is somebody you hear potentially getting moved and the 49ers doing something with that draft capital. It was Matt Breida after the 2019 season that was moved for a 5th round pick, resulted in Colton McKivitz. And Colton McKivitz is going to be a starting right tackle for the 49ers this year. So there is a way to go about it. He was an undrafted free agent, so you would have got the same sort of thing. So the 49ers will have to figure this out. Is Jauan Jennings worth a 2nd round tender of $4.3 million? Absolutely. Can the 49ers pay it? I think that's different. So thanks, guys, for watching this episode of 49ers Cutback. Let me know what you thought about Jauan Jennings potentially get traded. Do you think, hey, Ant, you're just off your rocker right now. There's no way Jauan Jennings is getting moved. And if that's how you feel, that's okay. Or, hey, Ant, you know what? It makes sense. It really could be a possibility. And I think that's, kind of where I was at with it. I went back and forth whether to, even make a video about it, but I just have too much conviction about the way the 49ers go about business that this could be a possibility, and we'll see if ultimately they decide to do it. But I am curious what everyone thinks about Jennings getting moved, and would you couple Jennings and another pick to move up into the 2nd round, whether that was to get an edge rusher, an heir apparent, or, an heir apparent like Jonathan Mingo or another wide receiver or even an offensive tackle. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching. More draft content will be coming your way. Of course, we will be going live Friday for rounds 2 and 3, and of course on Saturday for rounds 4 through 7. Join the conversation, and let's have fun. 49ers are about to change some things and make some picks. It's going to be a fun time for 49er fans, and it's a fun time for the NFL in general. But until next time, stay safe, and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.